All right, welcome to the dungeon, and we seem to be going on a book tour. I've interviewed quite a few book people, and that's a pretty neat thing. I've so we have here coming into the dungeon today is Rob Zombie. No,
I get that
but
a lot.
what? Huh, no, hold on. Yeah, no, that's not Rob
That's
Zombie.
used.
That's 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 Joshua Millican. Uh, Josh, how you doing, man?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for having me.
So, well, thank you so much for your time. Now, uh, we're going to be talking about a book that you have coming out. It is coming out June 14th, and for those of you listening or watching, you know, 10 years down the road, we're in 2022. So. Yeah, it you hopefully not. You might be able to find a copy in a used bookstore or something like that.
Oh, that'd be great.
So
Out in the wild.
up at what's the name of that one store, Second and Charles or something like that. That just has a plethora
Sure.
of stuff. So
Sounds good.
anyway, but the book's coming out is Deeper Than Hell. So just the name itself, just at least in my warped, effed up mind, just creates. Uh, and as I started into the book, it was like I kind of got this Dante's Inferno, Divine Comedy vibe to it, where our main character Sonny is going through all these
Mhm.
different I don't know, levels or different sections of this.
Intentional.
Yeah. Okay. So evidently that was one, at least one of your. We're talking about all the other inspirations, but that's at least one of the inspirations you had for, I guess, the
Absolutely.
construction of the world.
Yeah, and a parallel allegory, something that people could compare this kind of story to, because you don't have a lot of novels that have, like five different primary settings of equal importance and, these incredibly important characters that just pop up for a chapter or two. So, Dante's Inferno, Alice in Wonderland, I just, wanted to kind of give a little clue to the readers that, you're going to cover a lot of ground.
Okay. Yes, and let's start off like from the beginning, sort of like the I call it my napkin story, because a lot of great stories and ideas start off as a little scribble on a bar napkin. So, but even before Deeper Than Hell, uh, let's talk about how you got interested in just the genre of horror. I mean, I see the Babadook back there, so
That's
uh,
right.
you're definitely and Chucky or Buddy or whoever that whichever incarnation that is
No,
back there.
that's an original. That's a Chucky. We don't talk about Buddy
Oh,
over
okay.
here.
All right,
We're Don Mancini. We're in Team Mancini 100%.
all right, very good. Uh, so I mean, growing up, what was your was like your first horror, or what was your introduction to horror? How did the horror bug bite you?
It bit me in the summer of 1986, and I hate dating myself, but that's the summer of Aliens and David Cronenberg's The Fly came out. And Aliens just had me stuck in my seat, and The Fly had me wanting to run out of my seat. And both sensations were just so awesome. I just wanted to watch more movies that thrilled me, that challenged me, that took me to these dark places. It was kind of like a test for myself too, to see if I could confront my fears, as a young horror fan, as a teenager. But, then I went to college and I'm interested in girls and music and stuff like that. I got back into horror because of Netflix. Netflix used to actually mail you the DVDs,
Mm-hmm.
so I remember when they first started streaming, this was just like, wow, this is fantastic. And so I basically watched every horror movie on Netflix. And when they first came online, their selection was very different than it is now. They had a lot of stuff that they don't have anymore that's hard to find now. A lot of foreign horror movies that had a lot of effect on me, mainly French horror movies. So I just loved watching horror movies and talking about horror movies, and it's in the early 2010s now, and I just started blogging about horror movies. Now, I actually come from a creative writing background, but I just got so into blogging and talking about horror movies that it was easy to shift into journalism, and it still felt good, utilizing my writing talents for journalism. And after a decade in journalism, my creative writing has really benefited a lot too, because journalism teaches you how to trim the fat. It teaches you, to try to make every sentence a hook, never give your reader an excuse to click away or set the book down or something. So Deeper Than Hell benefits a lot from my journalistic eye. So, I was editor-in-chief of Dread Central until the end of 2021. That's when I left. My son was born. I'm a first-time father, so I wanted time to just completely devote to him, and I also wanted to start a new chapter in my life. And Deeper Than Hell is kind of the first new indication of this chapter.
Okay.
Kind of flubbed off at the end there, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. So when you came up with Deeper Than Hell, what kind of inspirations do you now? Now you obviously draw from music, from different, and not just certain horror movies. There's some references to that. There are a lot of geeky, call outs, as it were.
Lots of Easter eggs.
And there's a few things we'll touch upon when we talk about the book. Is like, okay, only fans would get this joke.
Absolutely.
And that's to me, it's almost like people talk about it, obscure, humor and stuff like that. But it's like, to me, that's the sweetest kind of humor, because there's almost like an elitism in a sense. It's like, okay, only a certain cross section of people are going to understand this punchline.
Absolutely. And I think that the good part of that, though, is if you aren't familiar with the inside joke, hopefully it just reads like good literature nonetheless.
Right. So, but yeah, you and I've seen it. I've seen this in movies a lot, but you seem to avoid this pitfall. Is that I've seen movies. And to me, it's sort of like, yeah, I love horror movies. I grew up on them. My very first one was The Changeling, and I think the most extreme one I had saw when I was a teenager was the original Evil Dead.
Right.
So that just, wow, that type of thing. But I kind of, like I said, I love horror movies, but to see everything just shown on screen and basically kind of spoon fed to you, yeah, okay, that's great, but you're on this ride, but you're only seeing what the director or the actor wants you to see.
Right.
And everything outside of the screen is either not there or is irrelevant or whatever. But when you get into books, because there's really nothing. There's really nothing more fucked up than a person's imagination, because you give like that morsel of things, and I'm gonna I'll talk about the third chapter.
Yes, we will. That chapter is already infamous. The book's not out yet, and chapter 3 is already infamous.
It's like every movie. If it's a good movie, it's that one scene.
Right.
That one scene that is like, this is like, yeah. Chapter 3 is that one chapter.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, did this offend you? Whatever. But Yeah, yeah, it's one of those things that's it either breaks you or makes you as far as whether you're gonna stay seated in the theater.
Sure.
Uh, but I find a lot of a lot of movies that try to be a lot of things. They try to be a ghost story. They try to be exorcism type things. Try to be a serial killer. They try to clump all these things into their movie, and they rarely succeed in doing any of them very well. Now, your book is, and I guess with the like the 9 levels of hell type of thing, because each chapter has its own call outs, its
Yeah.
own flavor in a sense
Yeah.
of different types of
Absolutely.
horror.
That's
Uh,
yeah, specific subgenres. Chapter three is the body horror, medical horror chapter. Chapter, what is it? 7 is the sci-fi chapter. So I definitely did that on purpose.
so yeah, so how did you find of? I guess my first question is, I'm been talking so long. I'm talking more than you. Jesus Christ.
No, I
Uh,
love it.
but my first question after 15 minutes, uh, how did you dedicate each? I mean, did you have like a flow as far as okay, this there are some things that this particular style of horror this has to happen first before something else later in the book happens, and maybe we could call back on that, and or just how did you lay that out as far as
Yeah.
what chapter does what?
I'd say yes and no. I kind of knew the different avenues I wanted to meander down, but I don't think I thought about the subgenres in order. It was just kind of like I had the plot lined out, and it was like which subgenre fits this plot the best, sort of. And truthfully, when I originally wrote Deeper Than Hell, I imagined it as a serial. I imagined like releasing a chapter a month online. And so, in that sense, I wanted each chapter to feel kind of independent and standalone and have its own unique flavor. And I also tried to end each chapter on a cliffhanger.
Mm.
So, it's kind of like a different approach. I had tried writing novels before. I just started at the beginning and figure I'll be done when there's nothing left to say. And I just got too far into the weeds. So planning it out, like I knew from the very beginning it was going to be 12 chapters. And I knew that the 12th chapter was going to be this, epilogue that tried to pull a Twilight Zone twist at the end. And, it just happened as it happened. And, I didn't really set out in chapter 3 to be like, okay, how low can I go? Because I was still thinking, how am I gonna wrap this up? With this character on a quest for a land without pain. Hinting that he's about to come face to face with God Himself. How am I gonna wrap that up? So when I'm writing chapter 3, I'm just like, I'm just here for a month, and then I'm gonna go on to something else.
Alrighty. Now, it mentioned not gonna we won't give it away the ending, obviously. Otherwise, people wouldn't have any have any reason to buy the book. But yeah, actually, two things. One is yeah, definitely for people to get the book, definitely read the epilogue. It's I kind of thought of that as like the if this was a movie, the epilogue was like the the post end credit scene that a
That's a good
lot of
way to put it.
like a lot of these Marvel and DC movies and stuff like that have. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so stay in the theater after all the for the credits because there's a little thing at the end. Um, also, there's the 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 Godhead or this at least the book's I guess interpretation or image of God, and I'm trying to be kind of nondescript there in a sense. But so did you grow up with religious or any stuff
Yeah.
that kind of uh, hooked into that?
I mean, yes and no. I was raised Jewish. I had a bar mitzvah. You know, I stopped practicing, you know, when I 18 years old, and life is what it is. But I always carried the tenets of Judaism in my heart. But no, I don't really think that. Oh, but and in a way that does play into Deeper Than Hell. You know, kind of like the very near the very end when Sonny's wrapping up his story, he talks about whether or not Jews actually believe in hell. So in that sense, yeah, it did tie in kind of sweetly at the end there. Um, but no, it wasn't really driven by like any religious fear or religious dogma. Because you know, it's weird. You know, Deeper Than Hell doesn't really go any place supernatural either. Because I don't believe in ghosts personally. So you know, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in a lot of you know what we're told in religious texts. You know, quote unquote miracles and things like that. So yeah, you know, I was raised Jewish, and that's part of me. So in that sense, that's part of Deeper Than Hell.
Okay. Yeah, and one of the things that okay, let's get into some of the aspects of the book. One of the cool things I like, we talked about some of the call outs to music and movies and stuff like that. Um, uh, so we follow the story of a guy named Sonny, right? And his descent or his adventures through in the underground tunnels and that's another thing that kind of a lot of I'd say over the past 10 years or so, I guess maybe. You know, like the older classic, you know, monster movies and stuff. You know, it was very black and white and said, yes, that is a demon, that is a monster, the monster, serial killer, guys coming to get you, blah blah blah. And a lot more modern horror movies or thrillers deal with this psychosis or this mental health type of thing. Okay, is this thing really real in reality? You know, it plays with that whole thing of there's two realities. There's reality, then there's one's perception of reality, and it's like, okay, is this real or is this part of you know the mental you know effect or something like it. In this case, the mental effect of drugs.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, and the cool thing that I enjoy throughout the entire book that calls through is Sonny's friend Drew, and I kind of thought of him as like Luke Skywalker's Ben Kenobi. You know, every once in a while after Ben died, you know, oh, spoiler alerts. After Ben died, you know, he'd have these little conversations with Luke or and you even called out in the book is like what's his friend? I forget the guy's character's name, but in uh, American Werewolf in London,
Yeah, yeah.
his little friend after he got ate up, you know, and each time he would appear, he was more you know decomposed and really and well, there's quite a bit of humor, not overt humor, but you know, like we talked about earlier, it's like you know, if you're if you're a geek about this kind of thing, you'll get the punchline.
Yeah.
Like for example, you know, I forget what Sonny's comment was like, and Drew was like, "No, come on, man. There's no such thing as floating monster heads.
Right,
What the fuck's
right.
wrong with you, man?" And then
Yeah.
later on in the book, when Drew appears to Sonny, that's precisely what he is a floating skeleton head. You know,
Right.
it's just. And the way you helped fill in all the gaps because you know we're only seeing Sonny through Sonny's eyes what the different worlds and his experiences are,
Right.
but you know he's getting filled in the backstory with all from Drew, and
Mm-hmm.
this ongoing thing of Drew is like, did I ever tell you about this? Or did I ever tell you about the time I did this? Yeah, you probably did, but tell me again. You know, and
Right, right.
so.
Hey, you're gonna tell me anyway, so go ahead.
Yeah. So, and then as the things go on, it's like is Sunny Drew or Drew Sunny again? This whole blending of reality and
Right.
what he's thinking about. Um, so when you came up with these different characters, um, I mean, I'm assuming that you already had in your mind. It's like, okay, this is who's going to be what and stuff like that. Um, but what was some of the inspirations that you took to get some of these characters? Like the chapter three medical guy,
Perfect.
the
Perfect.
Hellraiser
Yeah.
Cenobite type things.
Exactly. Chapter three is really is a homage to Clive Barker. It takes place in this cult compound, and this cult basically they're wannabe Cenobites. They're obsessed with Clive Barker's vision of mutilated, modified beings that have lost the ability to differentiate between pleasure and pain, and they want to be Cenobites. So they started a colony underground, and they got into extreme body mutilation. Beyond what you see in Hellraiser, beyond anything you've seen, in real life. People split their tongues and crazy shit now, but I just thought like of the most insane kind of body modifications, all of them permanent, like the kind of body modifications you can't come back from. Um, but yeah, chapter three is my Hellraiser.
Excellent. Yeah, and I could tell you that that's for me. I mean, people have different like trigger warnings. That's why I think the website "Does the Dog Die" is so popular. You can look that up to see
Right.
if you have any, a certain movie or whatever has any particular triggers for you. But yeah, just for me as a reader, yeah, chapter three was one of my. It was like, oh, okay. I mean, met.
What have
Y-
I done?
no, it's good in a sense because it's like, uh, and again, it's similar to horror movies. We could face our fears, the things that really creep us out and just screws with our heads and plays on those memories and trauma in a safe space in a sense. Uh, but yeah, I have a long medical history of stuff, so it's like anything medical. It doesn't even have to be body horror, just anything medical.
Well,
Uh,
that's one of the most frightening subgenres of horror to me too,
mm,
is medical horror, because it's like we're all going to get at least one big sick in our lives.
mm,
And it just it's so frightening, the loss of control, the environment of that, the idea of being on a gurney with tubes going into your body, and then I take it to the next level, and it's like you're strapped down to a gurney, and the sheet that's covering your body is blood stained and puke stained,
mm.
and it's there's just one big light shining on you, and you can barely make out anything else. That's my hell too.
Yeah, uh, yeah, definitely. So, but I forget what chapter it is, but it's your homage to the Elfman,
Yeah, chapter
and
4.
uh, how it's like I don't know that you don't. It's pretty obvious that you're talking about Danny Elfman or Oingo Boingo because I remember another little chuckle that I had was when the paragraph when you first mentioned the Elfman.
Hmm.
The very first line in the next paragraph is it was just another day, and,
Yeah.
and it was like it was like and then it was later on it was pretty obvious. It was just, so
Yeah, well,
talk
it's
about
not
that.
based. Sure, sure. It's not based on Danny Elfman. It is Danny Elfman. So
Okay, so
Danny Elfman
Danny's
is
sort of like the godhead of this particular community,
exactly.
you know.
Well, Danny Elfman's non-earthly origins are revealed in Deeper Than Hell because, come on, that guy can't be human. He's just too talented and brilliant. So, yeah, I loved bringing Danny Elfman in for a little cameo and making having a cult basically kind of structured around the teachings of Danny Elfman. They call him the Elfman, but it was a blast. I loved it, and yeah.
Do you think was that like a commentary on how uh, people or fans lift up their heroes, or they admire like a rock star or an athlete or something like that so much that they just put them up on this godhead pedestal?
Yeah, maybe subconsciously. My connection to Oingo Boingo is that I loved them as a kid when I loved horror and everything. And that song, Just Another Day, talks about life underground, and it's a dark fantasy. It's about an apocalyptic event, and I'm dreaming again of life underground. It was just like so evocative to me. It's like this song is like a journey to the center of the earth, and I've always been interested in underground societies and the spookiness of caves and tunnels and things like that. So it just belonged in my book.
Mm. I know one of my favorite lines from that song is, and I can't sing it otherwise, so I'll probably mess it up. It's like, just when I think that everything's in its place, the heavens are secure, everything is in its place, the whole thing
In my
explodes in
face.
my face. I love that line. So,
Yeah. And Danny Elfman's having this resurgence of popularity right now. He did some amazing shows at Coachella. He's still Tim Burton's right-hand man. So, I mean, that was the fun thing about writing a book, a book inspired by horror cinema. Because if this was a movie, there's no way I'd be able to get Danny Elfman to do a cameo. I invent a time machine and go back to 1987 to get, Oingo Boingo reunited. Never happened. But in a book, yeah, Danny Elfman, you've got a cameo in my story. You don't have to do anything. Just be you. But you're in my book, you know?
now, did you have to pay him like royalties or anything to quote his song?
No, as long as we don't sing the song, we're
Oh,
good.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
that's good. That's good because I
And
can't sing.
we don't reprint the whole song in there. We have a couple stanzas that kind of represent the tenets of the religion of the Children of the Inferno.
Okay, yeah, that was another good high point of the deeper than the hell. I don't know if I could call high point, but anyway.
Yeah, it's like I set that up on purpose. Chapter 3 and chapter 4, they're vastly different in terms of presentation, but ultimately it's kind of like the same experience just on a psychological level. Psychological level. Dr. Hopnadel, the leader of the Acolytes of Destruction, he wanted to break Sonny physically. Archibald, who's the cult leader of the Children of the Inferno, wants to break Sonny mentally. So, it looked like he had escaped the worst of it, because he left physical torture behind, but the whole thing was part of a mental manipulation.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I like about the book is like, okay, you get to a point in the book where it's like, okay, all right, well, Sonny survives this one, but the next one's going to be worse. Well, it's almost, it's not so much that it's worse, it's that each thing that Sonny goes through, or each level of hell, in a sense that he is venturing through, is the same level of worse, but it targets and starts poking some other aspect of him.
Yeah.
So by the end, he's like in all ways imaginable, pretty effed up.
Yeah, yeah. And then, the final ritual he endures, more torture, very ritualistic. It's not quite as bad as chapter 3, but, I kind of went there in a lot of areas there too, with the idea of this, but except for this time, Sonny's going through it willingly, sort
Mm.
of a rite of passage.
Oh, and when he prepares to meet God.
Yeah, when he prepares to meet God. But yeah, it's like Sonny's journey is very painful,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like the main reason you wouldn't want to like be in his shoes. Like he endures physical agony often. And that's kind of like a consistent in there, intentionally or unintentionally, I don't know.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So, yeah, if you don't mind, if you have like a section of the book that's sort of like maybe your favorite page or your favorite scene that you could narrate out for
Yeah,
us.
I'd love to. So this is actually in the beginning. It's in chapter one, and Sonny has never really been obsessed with the idea of life underground. That's his best friend Drew, who kind of is the one who literally pulls him kicking and screaming into this adventure, that he's not even sure he believes in. So Drew is obsessed with life underground, and he's a little bit of a history buff and a conspiracy theorist. So every time before they go on this adventure, they live in the tunnels under Las Vegas. They've built themselves a nice little shanty hut. And after getting high, Drew will tell Sonny a story about life underground, something to just kind of make him think. So this is one of the first stories that Drew tells Sonny. And I'll start off a little bit before that.
All right.
Every night after slamming, Drew would tell me stories as we drifted off into warm oblivion. The blackness that surrounded us, the sick rainbows of spray paint that covered every surface, would dissolve, melt, and reform into a cinematic panorama of his words. It was better than any movie, more engaging than the most profound works of literature. Hey, Sonny, have I ever told you about the Cave of Letters? He asked me my first night underground. And then Drew continues. Back in the first century, the Romans went to the Holy Land to slaughter all the Jews, right? And they built this huge military outpost in the mountains. Now, just recently, archaeologists discovered an opening under the city that led to an entire cave system. It turned out this one tribe of Jews escaped underground to avoid the Romans, and no one knew about it. They found living quarters and kitchens and temples and even pens for livestock. They only found a few bodies, but at the deepest levels, they found passageways that had been completely sealed off. Now, let me ask you this, Drew said, pausing for dramatic effect and to make sure I was paying attention. Do you think all those people just died off or maybe came up someplace else? I shrugged. Fuck no, Drew continues. Obviously, they moved down even deeper, and they sealed the tunnels so that no one could follow them. It's possible to think they're still alive down there, all these generations later, completely removed from the service. Don't you think so, Sonny? Why wouldn't there be? Why wouldn't they be? They've probably evolved to life without the sun. They probably look different, but I bet they're still there. Now think about this, Sonny. There was another pause that knocked me out of my nod. If archaeologists just discovered the Cave of Letters a few years ago, how many other underground societies do you think there are out there? That can't be the only one.
As it turned out, there it's not.
Not indeed. But yeah, I mean, really are, because Deeper Than Hell pulls on sort of like American legends of life underground, specifically, Area 51, Wonderland. We have this kind of like American mythology of life underground, but lots of different cultures all over the world have these, examples of people living underground or their own mythologies about life underground and journeys underground.
Yeah, and that even reminds me of there's a reference to a SCP in the book. I had to go and when I came up across that, I was like, okay, I gotta go look that one up. So I got so yeah, so it's a very good horror novel, or no, is it a novel, novella? What's like the technical term for that?
Yeah, it's just barely a novel.
Okay,
It's just barely, a novella is considered between 20,000 and 40,000. This is closer to 50,000
all right, and then
words. We're talking
words.
words, not pages,
No,
obviously.
yeah,
Yeah.
page. Oh, gee.
Yeah.
I, I,
Obviously.
a quick joke. A friend of mine was a big Stephen King fan, and he would buy his original idea was to buy all the books in hardback because he thought it would look nice on his shelves. Well, he said he stopped buying hardbacks because he said at one time he was lying in bed. He had a Stephen King hardback in his hand. He was reading it, and he was lying down with the book up like this, above his head. And as he was reading, he kind of dozed off, and the book slipped out of his hands and damn near broke his nose.
Damn.
So, so he said, "Yeah, from that point on, I just do. I guess I just wait till paperback comes out." So,
Yeah, yeah. Deeper Than Hell's a nice lean read. There's substance there, but it won't break your nose if you
right,
fall asleep
very
reading it.
good, very good. And it's if you're a geek in anything, uh, pop culture, there's plenty of call outs in that and some inside jokes that only us geek would understand.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
It's written for horror fans. It's written for people who love horror movies. It's heavily inspired by horror movies.
yep. So what so far is like your favorite horror movie that you've seen hundreds of times and you could see 100 more.
Yeah, I actually just today on Dread Central, they published a listicle I wrote, a tie-in article of movies that take place underground. So you can check that out on Dread Central. But in terms of my favorite horror movies, I loved 2013's Evil Dead. And I mean, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
expect it. I was ready to hate it because I hate remakes, and how could what a freaking money grab. But it's so different. And it has the heroin connection, from Deeper Than Hell. I've never done heroin, so a lot of what I extrapolated was from films like Requiem for a Dream, Train Spotting, and Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead. I look at these movies and I kind of study, and then I extrapolate, from my own experience, like the most euphoric aspects of ecstasy or psilocybin, and and I imagine this ultimate pleasure, but a lot of the physicality of it comes from these films. That's why I'm getting a little on a tangent, but you'll notice, like, I talk about the characters shooting up, but I never explain the mechanics of it because I don't really know that. And it's like, yeah, I've read about it. I know about the spoons and sticking the vein and the little blood goes back into the syringe, but that's not my world, so I didn't even talk about any of that. But Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead. I love that movie. And another movie that I love that kind of has, maybe shows its inspiration in Deeper Than Hell. I love The Mist, Frank Davenport's The Mist, with that ending that just
Oh yeah.
destroys you. But just all these Lovecraftian creatures, these monsters, this, the mist coming over everything, and all of a sudden you're in this like Hieronymus Bosch world, of crazy, crazy creatures. Yeah, I love The Mist. I think that one's just fantastic as well. And I love, I said I don't believe in ghosts, but I love ghost stories. I love The Conjuring movies. I loved Hereditary. I
Mm,
loved it. It was the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, there you go.
excellent. Yeah. I loved Evil Dead. I was like you, very skeptical and reticent. But once I saw that Bruce Campbell and so gave their thumbs up and approve, stamp of approval, was like, okay, I'll yeah, I'll give this thing a chance. I'll try it out.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And Jane Levy was just amazing.
oh
Uh,
yeah, I want to
she,
see her in more stuff. I haven't seen
I
her
do
since.
too, man. I do too. I'm a big fan of hers.
Yeah. So before we talk about some of the stuff you got going on with the Dread Central, um, because I'm sure there are people out there that are watching and listening to the podcast or watching the YouTube channel. By the way, like, hit subscribe, blah 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 blah. You know what to do. Um, a lot of inspiring writers. Uh, was there any time, even during your time of with Dread Central, uh, and we hear a lot about imposter syndrome and stuff, or was there any a time that you actually questioned, am I even on the right path?
You
Am I
know,
am I do and what and how did you? Obviously, you didn't give up because yeah, uh, but how did you overcome that obstacle? How did you overcome that monster in your mind?
well, in terms of working at Dread Central, I just always knew that my love of horror was pure and my command of the English language was well above average. So that made me a great ambassador for horror. And I got into horror journalism 10 years ago when horror wasn't as mainstream as it is now. Horror needed every voice of support that there was. You still had to kind of convince people that horror movies were in the same category as dramas and things like that. So, as far as Dread Central goes, I had done years of blogging and writing for other sites before I got there. So I was pretty secure. But no, imposter syndrome is real. And, I worry about the novel. But so far, and fingers crossed, I've just gotten really good feedback on it. I've gotten some really great Goodreads reviews from people who I don't know. They're not connected to me in any way. Stupid Chainsaw Productions, the guy really liked it. He said, it was a really great first novel, that, an outstanding first novel. And he said it's one of the grossest things he ever read that's still worth reading. So that was a good compliment. He gave it 4.5 stars out of 5. So, that's what's helping me. I still worry, like, oh man, is the shit gonna hit the fan when people read chapter 3, The Nose? Did I just take it too far? But we'll see. We'll see.
Have you seen The Sadness yet?
Oh yeah, the one where
Yeah.
that was
Okay. So yeah, I don't think they're gonna have a problem with the nose thing.
well, my book is much less rapey than The Sadness. Much less. So, but yeah, if you watch The Sadness, this might actually feel like a step back.
Yeah. So, uh, but yeah. So that as I said before we started rolling, I was like, I don't have any notes. I just come up with shit off the top of my head as we're talking.
Sweet.
Uh, so I mean, it sounds like, I mean, we're what, not even a week at the time of recording. We're not even a week before, like 4 days till the Deeper Than Hell comes out
Yes.
officially. Um,
Yes.
so this being your first, I guess, fiction book, um, it seems like it's good to do really well. So what is how have you starting to feel the sophomore type pressure? Is like,
Absolutely.
okay, well, what do I do now?
Well, not pressure. The thing about Deeper Than Hell is that, it's said that this is just Sonny's journey. These things that he encountered were just, his particular path. The idea is that underground is basically infinite. Okay, it's not infinite, but we're talking millions of square miles, right? Tons of other stuff down there. There's a character in Deeper Than Hell who's in chapter 1 and then pops up later on. It might be cool if people want. If people want a sequel to Deeper Than Hell, I'll get started on that ASAP, and it'll probably be called the Junkman Chronicles, and it'll be about Thaddeus, and his a little bit of his life in Las Vegas, and then his quest kind of to tail Sonny and get back what's his. So there's so much more area to explore. Underground, the idea of terrors beneath our feet. It's kind of an endless concept, and I think I've made some really cool characters. And yeah, especially with the Twilight Zone ending, I think there's plenty of room for me to go back and expand on everything.
Excellent, excellent. So let's talk about the other things you have coming up now. Again, feel free not to, don't, if you have to kill us after you tell us, don't, obviously don't tell us, but some of the other things that you have coming up down the
Well, I'm
pipeline.
I'm thrilled to talk about, what else I've got going on. Deeper Than Hell is being released by Encyclopocalypse Publishers, and later this year, towards the end of the year, they're going to be releasing a collection of my interviews from the years I worked at Dread Central. Excuse me. Basically all of the interviews I did. It's 50-some interviews with some of the biggest names in horror. And it's going to be quite an extensive tome, and it's going to have an index so you can look things up. And, I'm really excited to be releasing that. We might even do a hardcover of that. So I just feel fantastic about that. When, you work for a website, you're always afraid that, the lights are going to go out one day and it's all just going to be gone into the ether. So I've always wanted to be a writer and have books. So the fact that I'm able to cull so much from my years at Dread Central, that it can be a standalone book, I just feel fantastic about that. So look for that. Later this year, maybe after the Halloween season kind of dies out, this will be something for the Christmas season. And also, I'm working on, in the process of completing, I'm writing the authorized biography of Richard Elfman, who is Danny Elfman's big brother, founder of the Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo, writer, director of Forbidden Zone. And I had not met him, actually, when I made Danny Elfman gave him a cameo in my book. Deeper Than Hell was actually written a few years ago, and I shelved it for a while. And it was when I didn't have the editor-in-chief duties hanging over my head constantly that I finally took it out and dusted it off and said, okay, you're getting out into the world. But yeah, Richard Elfman is a fascinating individual. You think Danny Elfman's fascinating. Richard Elfman was his first mentor, was the one who gave him his start in music with this theatrical edge to it all. And no biographer has had as much fun with his subject as I have, because Richard Elfman lives in this beautiful home in the Hollywood Hills with a rooftop deck. He's a gourmet chef. He grills me just the best foods. And for a few months, I went over just about every week or every other week, and he would cook for me. We'd drink wine and whiskey. He'd smoke cigars and I'd smoke cannabis. And I just pressed, the record button on my little tape deck, and we just talked. And I've got like 30 hours of interviews with him, and it's going to be fantastic. And in addition, I'm working on right now, actively still, collecting interviews from people from Richard's life and people who were inspired by Richard and people who worked with him in his film career. So it's just wonderful. Richard really is one of the most exciting, exotic, erotic individuals I've ever met.
Wow, that's pretty neat.
Yeah,
That's
and
cool.
I'm so honored that he trusts me to be, the ambassador of these stories. I first floated the idea by him. He was like, let me think about it, but, this really is like a equal effort from both of us. It's basically a 50-50 thing. And, having that access, I'm writing a biography about a man, and he is my source. So it's just so wonderful. And I'm so thankful that he trusts me.
That's incredible.
I am giving him final say before publishing. So
Okay.
you trust but verify.
Right.
It's not a kind of, I'm not looking to dig up anything on the guy. I love the guy, and that's going to obviously be part of it. Some biographies are written by very subjective, objective, professors writing about someone in history. Nah. This is me writing about one of my really good friends who's also just an incredible, incredible artist.
Wow. That's incredible. I envy you, man. I was just to sit down, just
Yeah.
bullshit with this guy.
Oh my God. Oh, my life, really.
Joshua, thank you so much for your time and meeting with us today. Appreciate it very much. We'll put links in the description of this podcast and video to go to Encyclopocalypse, if I say that right.
Yeah.
Is it so? It'll be available on Amazon and other places.
Amazon. Yeah, exactly. You're going to want to get it on Amazon. Just search Deeper Than Hell. It's the #1 return you'll see when you search it. Coming out next week. Maybe it'll be out by the time this is published. it at the very least will be available to order because it will go on sale this weekend. I think you'll be able to pre-order your copy in time for it to arrive on Tuesday. And before we wrap up too, I just want to thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you.
I love the fact that people are giving me their sharing their platforms with me. And thank you so much for having read Deeper Than Hell and for having given it such a thoughtful consideration and for really understanding my vision. Thank you.
Thank you. So if people want to find out more about the man of Joshua Millican, where can they go?
Twitter. Do me on Twitter. That's my main hub these days. At Josh, Josh _ Millican, Millican. I'll probably follow you back too.
Excellent. And again, we'll have that link in the show notes. So Joshua, thank you so much for being with us, for your time, and I think Deeper Than Hell is going to be really, really good. I mean, if you're getting good feedback and stuff from the people who's read it, and so I think I hope this really helps drive people to either the publisher or Amazon or to the bookstore or whatever to go check this book out for themselves. And good luck with the Dread Central article, books coming out, and then that biography. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.